Welcome back. If you've been inspired by any of the poetry or short story you've heard tonight, you can download our submission form from the Dundalk FM website by just clicking on the Creative Flow programme, and you'll get all the necessary details there. Or if you prefer, email me, jacinta@dundalkfm.com, or indeed hand in a hard copy to us here at the radio station at Partnership Court, Park Street, Dundalk. Now, it must be one of the most exciting times for a writer to see your first novel in print, and here to tell us all about it is Don Cameron. Don has been writing short stories since the early 90s, but Marked Off is his first novel. Welcome to the Creative Flow, Don.
Yes, thank you for asking me here, Jacinta. Nice to be here.
Tell us a bit about your background.
My background, before I started into the writing, my background is that as of an accountant, and I worked in Dublin for many years, and I went away to London in 1986, as a lot of people were at the time. I worked in a number of kind of near state and semi-state organisations over there, and eventually in the late 97, just after Tony Blair got in, I actually got into the last couple of years I worked in Westminster. That was very exciting. That meant travelling around the UK a lot, it meant writing a lot of reports. So the discipline started really there. So you have to have stuff done at a certain time and certain days. You can't let it go for days and weeks. You must have stuff done. So the discipline was there. And I started, a friend of mine one day actually just said to me at a barbecue, I think the sun was on his head for too much that day, he just said to me, you should be writing. I really don't. It took me a few years to ask him why he said that. And he just quite said to me, it's very simple. He said, if you can manage to transfer what you say, how you say it onto paper. He said, that was very kind of him. So
Marked Off was born.
That's what the idea was, yeah. Well, the initial idea just to start to write.
As our book club members will know, having read it, it's a crime story.
Absolutely.
So
yes.
Having worked in those institutional type places, yes. Did that give you an idea of the running of the Garda Síochána, or how an institutional run organisation works?
Yeah. Well, certainly the institutional aspect, and you have to, like, there's systems, there's procedures and whatnot. Obviously reading other books, which I've read over the years. Hence, like, if I was going to write something, I think, well, what do you read a lot of and what do you like? So the crime genre stuff, be Americans or British, and more recently Irish books. So I was quite familiar with all that. So you see, and you obviously see stuff on the television. So you kind of, if you're going to the idea we're going to write something, you have to start absorbing it and think, how am I going to use that? So the relationship between people, good, bad, or different, and the red herrings that pop in every so often. So all that sort of stuff. So yes, it definitely, the working in a big organisation definitely helped. And I know one or two, people who are medics and people who are in the police. So they kind of helped, just pushing in the right direction, saying little things like that. So filling in kind of holes that I might have had, I wasn't sure about certain things. And so the idea that the story, if I just continue on that a little bit, is was, I wasn't looking for the particular idea, it just literally sprang into my head. Okay. I was working somewhere, you see a relationship, you see a guy and a girl in a very normal day-to-day, it's nothing strange, people will identify with it all over, which I can't tell them because I was giving away the idea. And for some reason, I must have had my thinking hat or a writer's hat on, because I looked at the situation again, and 5 minutes later I thought, oh wow, that's very interesting. I just turned it upside down. Nothing had changed, there was still a guy talking to a girl, but there was an opportunity there. And I don't know how that happened. That was just the moment that came to me.
Well, that's a lot of our writers, whether it's short story or other authors that have been on the show, often say that it's just a spark of an idea, and as the book develops, the idea develops alongside, so to speak, rather than sitting out and having a plot from start to finish and then writing the book. The book develops as you get in and get to know all the characters.
It was definitely a spark of inspiration. There's no doubt about that. The thing about, they say it's 1% inspiration, 99%, and I totally agree with that, because I had never written anything other than, maybe a 10 or 15 page short story, which is, a good short story. I'd never gone much further than that, maybe 20 pages. So to suddenly take on the idea of writing a book, which is like into the hundreds, I think, wow.
Hundreds of thousands of words.
What do I do now? You know, when there's 82,000 or something like that, which is like crazy stuff, to go from a few hundred to that. But
you have a lovely little story. Most people write books and bang down doors to get the publisher, but our author here, our esteemed author, is the winner of RTE Today Show and New Ireland Get Your Book Published competition 2014.
Oh, shall I tell you a bit about that, shall I?
Do,
okay,
yeah,
right.
because we're all banging on the doors.
Yes, well, it's definitely, you know, it's like, I suppose, writing-wise, a bit like winning the lottery, really. The idea of the story, anyway, you know, we have the story, and I've been writing it for years. I put it down numerous times, left it there. If I was to add up all the pages that I had that I tore up, it'd be a mountain, right? It'd be
confetti.
Oh, terrible! But I had to start again, and it really was quite simply. It was a case of, I liked the idea so much. I mean, you know the story, and it was a case of, I found this thought one day and I wrote it down. I said, "Believe and achieve." And I wrote that down. I'd look at it every. It's always there. Believe. Because I believed in the idea. It was just no one else had done it. And I didn't want anybody else to get it. So I had to keep ploughing through, no matter how bad it was. First draft, second draft, all the rest of it. So I mean, the first draft took about 2 years, because I didn't know how to do it. Anyway, so after a couple of years of doing all this, we get to the end of 2013, and I have an idea in mind that I want to finish the book by middle of February, because my father's anniversary. I thought, here's a good date to have it done. So a friend of mine had edited it and handed it back to me, and it was just like so much red. I thought she'd bled. There was blood all over it. It's just red. It's just like, and very appropriate indeed. That was going to be her blood, and she stopped, you know. And so I thought, wow, this is a serious learning curve we're involved in here now, but she was professional. So that was it. So that was October, November, December. Took that away. So by the middle of January, I actually had it finished, looking for somewhere to contact an agent or whatever. And I went online, surfed around, got some names, and I found New Ireland Books. I thought, oh yeah, and they will accept your book, your submission. That was cool. That's all I wanted to see. So I'm back out to the homepage, and I saw it, middle of January now, right? Look down, and I see, oh, Get Your Book Published competition. And I thought, great. Damn, that's out of date. That's probably the end of December. They haven't updated the page. So I wrote it, read through it, and I had 5 days. So I got 50 pages with a synopsis, sent it off. So they've been open since September, October, November, December. So nearly 5 months, and I got in the last week. So that was my lucky moment. So I sent off the 50 pages with a synopsis. A month later, I got an email saying, congratulations, you were one of 10 shortlisted. Can we please have the manuscript in 5 days? Presume that you obviously have written it. So that was fine. So that was more in front of the screen. Get, you know, Tony on one page, like was Mick 200 pages later. I had to get all trying to rectify as best I could. Anyway, so send it away. And 2 weeks later, I come home and my telephone is not working. Battery is dead. It's true, I don't write, this is a story. And I charge it up and I see 2 phone calls from the publisher. I recognise the phone number. I thought, oh, this is the Dear Dawn phone call. I should know this is bad. Anyway, and it was, and I won. So I win it on a Tuesday, RTE, and I'm down the train and I'm talking to Daithí and Moore on Thursday on the TV. Very rock and roll. It's great fun.
Brilliant. Well, we're joined in studio by our book reviewers for this month. Roisin and Elaine, you're very welcome. Now, it's very daunting, I know, to sit in front of the author of the book you've just read and ask you to review it. But tell me what you thought of it. Elaine, we'll start with you.
I just want to say congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Writing a book, I'm very impressed. Very, very difficult to do. And then to win an award, super. 3 things I'm looking for in a book. One is to be entertained. And I was definitely entertained with the story. Very plot driven, lots of twists and turns, lots of red herrings, and it comes to a conclusion, and most of the pieces of thread are put together at the end. So that was brilliant. Then I'm looking for something that has a unique quality. It may be a character or a different angle or whatever, but with this particular novel, I felt that Dublin was centre stage, and I think you really portrayed it very nice in terms of the descriptions of the coastline and moving about the streets in the suburbs. I thought that was all marvellous. And then the third aspect I'm looking for is to be informed, and I felt in this area I could have done with more. So, for example, it's very much Irish, so I would have liked more on, say, what systems the Gardaí are using, like the pulse system. I'd like to know more about the process of actually arresting somebody and how they're cautioned and so on and so forth. And for example, you introduce a character, Christine Connolly, a profiler. Now, I don't think I've come across in newspapers or whatever the use of a profiler in Irish cases before, and I thought that was really interesting, but I felt she should have been developed more, because actually, although she was a profiler, she didn't actually add much to the development of the story. That was so that's sort of a gist of how I felt.
Roisin?
Yeah, I found the Dublin aspect very good, because an awful lot of times when I read books set in Ireland I cringe, because they don't seem to be, there's something unauthentic, and I felt that
it's like a made up town, or
because when you live in a place, you're kind of more conscious, and I didn't find that. I found Don's description very good. I found that the main character was very interesting. The other characters were good as well. And I actually thought of that. I said this would be a very good series. That I felt this is the beginning, and I can see what Elaine is saying, but I can see them being developed, those different aspects.
So would you would be interested then in following, say, the career of Detective Danny O'Neill through a series of books? I think that because they're very readable books, that you could, definitely you would say, right, he's interesting, and we'll see what happens next. Yeah, he's a kind of a flawed character. Well, so you're rooting for him to, solve the crime, get the best.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I didn't think he was that flawed. In fact, he seemed very attractive.
There's a backstory of flawed. I don't mean.
I know, but there is generally different aspects, I suppose, that make a character interesting. Like he's lost, he's had loss in his life, and he's had difficulties. So that's true.
We have to be very cagey here, you see, because we don't want to give any of the story away.
I'm sorry.
It's an enjoyable book.
Yeah.
Could I ask Don a question?
You can, of course.
I felt the media came off very badly in this story. There's an aspect to it where the media leak information to the public. So I hope I'm not giving too much away to say there's a serial killer on the loose, and the Gardaí are trying to keep that a secret from the public, but the media release that information to the through the news or whatever. But there was a real case in America called the Grim Sleeper, which is ongoing, about a serial killer in South Los Angeles, and the police there got a lot of criticism from the local black community, because there'd been a serial killer living in their area for 30 years, and the police hadn't actually warned the community. So surely the media are actually doing the average citizen a favour by actually divulging that type of information. Or do you have a view?
That's a point of view. That's it. A couple of years ago, you saw in America, there was a guy called the Night Stalker, and they released information about him, about the shoes he wore. So he stopped wearing them, so he didn't know the next killing. So you have to be very careful as to what you release. I just wanted to make the media, they're not angels by now, and they're all up for themselves. So there you go.
I think too,
it was any deeper than that. It was just a case that they're kind of cheap guys, and they're set up. The office is set up. You get the flavour of them, and that's what they're about. So
I think too, the media have their agenda, and the Crime Stoppers have their agenda, but it's nearly like the cat and mouse game with the Gardaí, and the media reflects the cat and mouse game of the killer and
Yeah.
Trying to
give too
catch,
much
and
away.
one's trying to be one step ahead of the other and give nothing away. And
But in the public interest, I can see what Elaine is saying. And also, what the thing is, I feel, well, when there is case, when there is murders or whatever, the Garda aren't half as efficient as the people in the book. They were under terrible pressure to catch this killer. But in Ireland, the cases go on and on and on and on. They don't get caught that quick, really, in reality.
No,
but that's fiction, though, isn't it? Like,
yeah, I know. Yeah, and also
the guy always gets the girl, or it doesn't
or not,
always,
whatever the case.
It doesn't always happen in real life. So it's the finishing of the
it's not a reality, obviously it's a story, but you're trying to make it some sort of reality, because you'd probably find that there is the cop like that, and that's what a murder has happened. So it's not a case of it is fiction, it's made up, but if you put them together, I mean, they're all genuine points, and he is, as we said earlier, I mean, he's a bit flawed, but you need to have a flawed character, otherwise it'd be very uninteresting.
But I can understand what you're saying, because I can remember back as a child an attacker being on the loose in Drogheda, is where I'm from, and as a child hearing the adults talking quietly about it, it was very frightening as a child, but it was very frightening for the community as a whole to know that threat is out there. So I can see, I see where you're coming from. But as a writer, how do you get into the head of a killer?
A tricky question. I'm giving too much away now. Am I the killer? I don't know. No, I just, having read other books, watch TV, watch documentaries, and you hear the profiler guys from FBI and things talking about what makes someone tick. Is it nurture or nature? And going back with you all seem to have had a bad life as a child and abuse and stuff like that. And so okay, that's what you have to have that. So and then you move it forward. And what's he like now? Bad with relationships. What can we have there? So you're bringing those issues out, so you can see why.
So did you do a lot of research on the psychology behind?
Yeah, a fair amount. And as I like watching some of those TV shows, but yes, I actually went online and read about stuff, and kind of you have these like points what to look for. They having this place Quantico and the FBI guys, the behavioural analysis guys. These are pointers to look for: abuse as a child,
father issues.
Yes, issues, violence, damaging at an early age, hurting animals and stuff. There's no empathy.
Yeah.
It's just me. I don't care. No pain. Doesn't matter, And then it goes on burning stuff and fires, and then eventually beating, and then one day you cross the line, you actually killed someone, and that's quite good. That's the issue, They're in control then. They're the first time in their life they've actually got control. They're not being abused, and that's why they go back to it.
Okay. When you're writing, who are you writing for? Is it male, female, mix? Who do you see as your audience as you're writing?
Well, that's an interesting question. I have to say, just a reader. I know lots of girls who read crime books. Lots of lady writers write crime books. So, couldn't say that it's. Obviously, I'm a guy writing it, so I can't say it's written for guys. No, I wouldn't have thought that at all.
No, the reason I ask that, ladies, I'd be interested to see what you think. You mentioned the profiler, and the profiler got a very good description. The lady in the house, one of the witnesses, got a very glamorous description.
Indeed.
None of the men did. We were, we were shortchanged here, Don.
And the men did. Oh, they weren't. You just have to pay attention to Danny O'Neill. He's the only one that matters, really.
They were very descriptive, very, So I wondered then, is it written for the male or?
No, I certainly I hear you. Take your point. It's not something I say, I better make glam them up and glam the other guys down sort of thing. No, I don't think against it at all. I think
not glam, but quite.
You needed, something.
Quite descriptive. Yeah.
No, it wasn't something didn't see a real issue with that at all.
I suppose following on from that, do you think this is kind of a misogynistic culture within the Gardaí? I suppose because that's how it comes across. Well, to me, it did.
Well, I'm not a member of the Gardaí, so I don't know. I can't offer any opinion about whatsoever. if you're talking about a load of guys together in a room like there's one girl, I suppose just by nature making comment about that, that's just the way it goes, sadly. It's as far as the police are concerned, I just think the guys do a really good job considering the dirty job they have to do, and very good at that some girls are actually involved in it. You know, I think the longer it goes on, there, you know, they have the profilers, the medics, and the examiners. I mean, what the state examiner is a lady and as the number 2 and has been for years. So I think those things are, if they're misogynistic, they're old hat. Actually, that's their issue, not a going forward issue.
There tends to be, like, I find this with books, a lot of books in general, like, for instance, it's meant to be in the present tense, but there's a real 70s feel about it. You know, there people are smoking their heads off in their offices, and there is this thing, like, there would be ordinary Gardaí women, not as many as men, but there would be a lot now, you know, and like the references for, say, the songs and things like that were all, like, somebody had made a reference to Stephen Roach, there was Thin Lizzy, there was Summer in Dublin, the song. So even though
Dublin songs,
they are Dublin songs and they are relevant, but if one or two more newer ones were also put in, you'd get more of an idea of the age of the book 2. Yeah.
Excellent.
Because what, he's in mid-30s, is he? Only?
Yeah, Daniel, move on into the next era.
Yeah.
So what's next for Don Cameron?
What's next? So, well, I have, because of with the book last year winning the prize in March, there's an awful long delay between then and actually editing with the New Ireland people. Long delay, actually. So the editor guy said to me, you should really consider writing the second one. So I did last year, a couple of months doing it. And then after the book launched this year, back in February, so literally the last 2 months or so. So at this moment in time, I could probably say to you that I'll have something finished by June. And then it'll be getting it tweaked and tidied up and making sure I have the right clothes and music and stuff.
I know, exactly.
And so hopefully by late summer we'll have another one. So I didn't really want to leave it too long. The fact that you won this thing last year, somebody said, oh yes, you wrote that thing 3 or 4 years ago. I said, no, you have to strike while the pen is hot.
That's it. Well, if you've enjoyed our discussion on our book club